Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. And as we delve into this week's topic, a reminder that some of the content may be of a sensitive nature. Now, here's your host, Des Kennedy.
Hi, you're with Momentum again, and this week we are going in a different direction than we normally go, in that we're going to be talking about men and their health. And you know, we don't often in Momentum talk about men and their health, and it's a really key subject. But before we get into that subject, guys, I just want to remind you about our website, momentumaustralia.org. We've got lots of opportunities there. We cover lots of subjects. We've got all our podcasts on there, and if you want to financially support the ministry, that is really good as well. You can provide feedback via our website as well. Don't forget our care line, guys. Don't do life on your own. If you need a safe and confidential conversation, 1-800-000-MEN. That's 1-800-000-636. 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. Also, don't forget our YouTube channel, TikTok. Both of those are available. Just search for Momentum for Men. And so, having said all that, I want to welcome Dr. John Wenham. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Des.
No, it's our pleasure. So just by background, let me just briefly introduce John. He's a practicing doctor, and he studied medicine in the UK and was a general practitioner has been for 21 years. That's a long time, and you don't look that old.
Thank you.
He was a partner in a practice in Manchester for 7 years before moving out to Broken Hill. But he worked for the Flying Doctors. And we've all got a great respect for the Flying Doctors. Yes. And you were a senior medical officer there for 4 years. And then you started working at a local practice. You do 5 clinics a week. You enjoy all you do. But you're really clever. You've done all sorts of diplomas in children's health and women's health. And that must play a big part in what you do in Broken Hill.
Yeah.
The other side, of course, is you're involved in teaching people and teaching other doctors how to do what you do, which is great. And also, you stay fit. You look like a healthy guy, which is really good. Since you're talking about men's health, that's sort of important. So that's really good. And you do play a bit of golf. But I guess the key thing, John, as you know on the show, you've got a strong Christian faith, and that is so important to all of us here, and means that you can offer advice from a Christian perspective. So, just very briefly, John, just for a minute or two, tell us about your life.
Well, that's a good question. When we first started talking, Des, we established that I was born in the same city as you in the world.
That's right.
So my father's an Old Testament theologian, and he was teaching at Queen's University in Belfast when I was born. But after about 6 years, we moved across the Channel, or the water, you say,
that's right.
to live in Cheltenham, where the Irish will go to the Gold Cup. And I grew up in Cheltenham, and I went to a Christian school from the age of 13 to 18, and that's where I became a Christian. Made a commitment for myself once I realised that it's not what mum and dad say, it's what you choose to follow yourself. Yeah. And then I went off to Manchester to medical school, and I was there for 5 years. Yeah. And I guess that was where really the rubber hit the road, and I realised that the first Sunday I was there, I've got a choice now. I can decide whether to go to church or not. And but it was a really fruitful ground in terms of growing in my faith and learning that actually you need to have conversations about what's important. And there were a lot of lads there that were keen to ask the questions. So I think that was a really good growing ground for me in terms of my faith. Yeah. And then I finished up med school 98, and I thought I'd wanted to be an obstetrician. I did that for 6 months, and they kicked the stuffing out of me, and I decided that actually I was more of a generalist, and I did some emergency medicine for a while, and then did my GP training. So that's how I ended up on the path to general practice.
Cool. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today, so we're talking about, first part of the show, we're going to talk about heart health and men's health in general as it relates to hearts. And then we're going to talk about mental health in the second part of the show. So some of the statistics around 130 men eat enough fruit and veggies. Only 1 in 4 are not overweight or obese. That's crazy, isn't it? 70% more potential years of life are lost compared to women. They're more likely to have excess drinking, smoking, and illicit drug use. 40% of disease among males could be prevented by avoiding and reducing exposure to certain risk factors, and we'll talk about those. 79% of Aussie men, 15 plus, visited the GP in the last 12 months. 79% is crazy. And so let's talk about your experience, John, with men and heart health. Sorry. What have you found?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of things that go on with men and GP attendance. I think with heart health, it's really about prevention.
Right.
You don't want to get to a point where you have a heart attack. So I guess there's been a gradual increase in focus and government funding to really get GPs to be screening for people that might be at risk.
So what sort of things, John, would they look for?
Yeah, so I'll get, 40-year-olds maybe coming, or 50-year-olds saying, I want to get some bloods done. All right, I want a checkup. Okay, what are you particularly interested in? And then they'll be saying, well, I'm worried about my heart, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. Okay, so I think there are men that actually come in and say that to me. That's how they present. And then there are others that you're seeing for other things, and you say, oh, they will just check your blood pressure while you're here. You might just start a bit of a conversation about the smoking habits, the eating habits, and alcohol intake. That's another important one. And you might even get on to exercise, how they feel about their weight. So those are all the things that we can be doing that improve our heart health, is looking after those things. But then you'll have people that will present with strange symptoms that they're not really sure about. I guess people know, that's been well advertised. If you have chest pain for a significant length of time, beyond 10 minutes, 20, definitely you should be going to ED and not messing about.
Yeah.
But if people start to get niggling chest pain time to time when they may be walking upstairs or walking a longer distance, then they should be coming in and getting checked out, because that's often a warning sign that things are starting to get to the point where an intervention would be good.
So things like, and Jerry, you can butt in here at any time, but in terms of, I've heard of men who get pains down their arm or over their shoulder. Are those also symptoms of a potential problem with the heart? Yeah,
so the stuff they teach us at medical school is always interesting. The classic presentation of a heart attack, the idea that you have this tightness around your chest. I've had patients say to me, it feels like an elephant standing on my chest, that real crushing central chest pain. But it tends to radiate, so that means it goes elsewhere. So classically to the left shoulder, down the arm, up into the neck. Those are the places it can go.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get those pains without having the central pain. So it can be a bit confusing. And sometimes people have silent heart attacks. So particularly diabetics.
Oh, okay.
They might not get the central chest pain, but what they'll get is short of breath, really sweaty, they feel sick. So these are things, you've got to be aware of your own body. And when you get new symptoms that you've not had before, those are the times to go and have a chat with your GP.
Right.
I think people talk about, if you're having a heart attack, is that feeling of impending doom, which sounds quite bad, but your body just does not feel well at all.
Yeah.
And often, people walk in, they might come in a chair or whatever into the ED, and they just look grey, pale.
Yeah.
The heart is not working well.
Yes.
So I think being aware of those things, but for those people that are fitter, maybe have a better baseline, it may be something that comes on more slowly over time. They'll be like, oh, I can't quite walk as far as I used to walk. I'm getting short of breath.
Right.
It's not a pain in my hip that's slowing me down. It's something in here, in the kind of engine room.
Right. So do most people who come to see you with a heart condition, would the majority of them have symptoms? I guess they would, wouldn't they? That would be the catalyst.
Yeah, I've had quite a lot of presentations, certainly since COVID. That's kind of increased it as well. We know that long COVID seems to have affected people's blood vessels. in some cases. And so we've been seeing more people get short of breath with persistent shortness of breath. So we've been checking those out. It's not always the heart, but also they'll be getting some chest pains that are just unusual. Basically, men probably, we don't have the protection that women do. So the estrogen that women have protects them against heart disease probably until the menopause, usually.
Oh, right.
So we tend to have heart problems about 10 years before women.
Right.
And you can really accelerate that if you have poorly controlled diabetes or you smoke, 20 a day smokers.
Yeah.
They'll often come in, in their early 40s with problems. So it's a funny one. People think, smoking lungs, but actually it's far worse in terms of your vascular, your circulatory problems. So, yeah, being aware of that. And the best thing you can do if you smoke is stop smoking.
Yes, that's right.
Put the fire out.
Yeah, but it was interesting what you said about marriage and women, men's blood pressure. Marriage is better for men's health. Men benefit from marriage.
Interesting.
Their health is an interesting statistic, whereas women don't benefit as much. Apparently, we stress them out more. So, yeah.
Yeah. So
interesting.
So we're going to run out of time on this subject very shortly, but just briefly before we take a break, can you talk to us about the sort of things that men can do to reduce their exposure to heart disease and heart failure?
Yeah, so there is an acronym which is quite helpful, makes you think about risk factors. We think about risk factors for blood pressure, but yes, SEEDS is one of them, and it's for smoking. So you need to look at changing your smoking habits and ideally giving up. Ethanol, E for ethanol. So reducing alcohol, we shouldn't be having more than a couple of standard drinks a day and probably having 2 days off a week.
Right.
Exercise is important. We should be getting our heart rates up above 120 for about, I think it's 20 minutes 3 times a week.
Right. So like walking or running or
and
Jerry's case is surfing.
Yeah, that'll get it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't need to go to a gym. Just going out the back door and going for a walk for 20 minutes. We don't need to be doing radical
simple stuff.
Yeah.
And then looking at your diet, D for diet, too much salt in your diet, that will push your blood pressure up. It's not good for you. Looking at fats, eating red meat on more than 3 days a week is not good for your overall cholesterol. Too much cheese, too many eggs, all these things. You just got to be careful that you have a balanced diet.
Yeah.
And too many ready meals that you buy from the supermarket. There's too many additives in there.
Yeah.
Better to cook home fresh food. I know that's hard if you're living on your own, but you can cook for 3 days and put it in the freezer. I always counsel my patients, look, with dieting, it's about, if you cut out heaps of stuff, it gets boring after a while.
Yeah.
And you relapse after 2 weeks. It's better to moderate the amount you're eating.
Yes.
And to try and cut things out. So it's better to have a balanced diet, but just look at how much you're eating, cut back by 10%, push your exercise up a little bit, and you're going to have to lose weight because you're going to burn more calories or eat less calories. But don't go too hard, too fast.
Yeah.
So what's the impact, finally, of stress on your heart?
Well, it's the same. Stress isn't good all round, is it? I mean, stress can do a lot to us. So I think we've got to be aware, working too hard, working long hours. If there are things in your life that are causing you stress, you need to try and address those. But yes, stress, they say that type A personalities was the old way of looking at it. Those of us that are more driven and pushing harder, far more likely to have heart trouble. So as far as you can reduce stress in your life and have time out, an exercise is a good way of doing that.
Yeah. No, that's great.
That's why I go running.
That's really great advice for men. So that's really good. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about men and mental health. And mental health is becoming more and more of an issue, and so we'll come back and talk about that after the break. We'll be back shortly. Meantime, guys, have a look at our website, momentumaustralia.org, and also, don't forget the care line and so forth. So we'll be back shortly.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
Okay, we're back with Momentum, and we have with us Dr. John Wenham with us. It's great that you're here, all the way from Broken Hill, which is just amazing. And for those who are listening, I don't know where Broken Hill is. Go and have a look. It is at the western point of New South Wales. Just in the middle of...
I thought it was in Tasmania.
In the middle.
I'm so sorry.
The middle of nowhere. So in the second part of the show, we want to talk about mental health and you know, the occurrence of mental health and men is more and more prevalent. We see it every day. You know, men committing suicide, and the statistics around suicide are horrendous. But some of the statistics from the Institute of Family Studies said that mental ill health remains high among men, with up to 25 experience a diagnosed mental health disorder in their lifetime, and 15% experience a disorder in a 12-month period. Talk to us about mental health. What's the drivers behind mental health from your experience, John?
Yeah, it's certainly a big one, and I think it sits below the surface for a lot of us. And what I was going to say earlier in the show is that men are far less likely to present to their GP than women. Women, if you look across the board, probably women will attend twice as often as men.
Right.
So often they don't have an established relationship with the GP, and there's this group that are missing. You don't see many between 20 and 35.
Yes.
Life's okay, we just carry on. But when people do come, they come quite slowly because they don't really realise what's going on.
Right.
Because, say, for depression, symptoms just come on very gradually, almost insidiously. So you kind of keep explaining things away.
Yeah.
And if you have a partner that you live with, they're probably the person that will start challenging you and saying, I think you need to go and see a doctor, or they might even drag you in. I've had that,
Yeah.
The female partner comes in and says, I really needed to see him. He's not himself.
Yeah.
Or a man might come in. I've had him come in and say, Doc, I think I need anger management.
Right.
Oh, okay. Let's explore your mood.
Yes.
I say to myself, and off we go.
Yeah.
So many reasons, but sometimes it's just life is busy. There's an ongoing stress or people have, post-divorce, that'd be a classic time.
Yes.
Not seeing your kids, all those things can
Midlife
have a really
crisis.
just a negative effect, losing a bit of your work identity. What is my reason for being here? And just feeling disconnected, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it is a huge issue, and I think, from my experience, is that men don't engage with other men and talk through their issues the same way that women do. So women will get together and have coffee naturally, but men tend not to do that.
And that's one of the things, that if you are depressed, you will most likely withdraw socially, because things like that are an effort. So you'll carry on doing work and you will drag yourself in and do your work, but you get home in the evening and you're just flat. You've got nothing left.
Yeah.
Or very little in the tank. Or you might think, I will go out tonight, and after half an hour, you're like, I'm just going home. I can't handle this.
Yeah.
Too much. So those are the kind of more subtle signs that something's not right.
So, Jerry, question for you. How would you relate to mental health? How would you see it? I mean, I don't know. Well, I know you well. And I don't know you've got too many mental issues, but maybe you do and you're hiding them.
How do I look? I guess I'm the same as a lot of other people. I'm alive. I have a pulse and two legs, and I get to make choices every day. Stress in the car, stress in the workplace, stress at home. How do I deal with that when it comes to me? Is I'm learning more and more in life, in marriage, to recognise it. And not
that's key, isn't it? Yeah.
And not to put it off, and to recognise it. And then one of the main things that I do is I talk to my wife.
Yes.
And the second thing I do, if it's not the first thing I do, is I talk to God. And I find scripture. And
Yeah.
I'll talk to Des. I've talked to Des on a few occasions as well. But they're the three main things that I would do. And why am I stressed?
Yeah.
Why? So I ask myself that question, and then if I don't know, my wife can usually, guide me. So that's what I do. That's what I do.
So, John, is there a formula for analysing yourself in terms of mental health? Things, triggers to look for, all that sort of stuff? But what would you be, like you said before, a change in your pattern of life is potentially a sign? Are there others?
Yeah, so classically, when someone presents with depression, we're looking for 2 weeks of low mood,
Right.
and then an associated group of symptoms. And one of those is lower energy levels,
Right.
lower motivation. They might have difficulty concentrating, whether that's on stuff they're doing at home, tasks at home, or tasks at work. I suppose if you have a more complicated job that involves numbers and figures and things, it'll be that processing you'll notice is becoming more challenging.
Yes.
And then sleep. Sleep is a classic one. People will present purely with, "I've got insomnia." And you go,
Oh, right.
young blokes, all younger than us, obviously, you say, well,
Yeah.
often it's a mood disorder that's the issue. So then we would explore the rest of it.
Yes.
Then you can have appetite changes. And it's strange because you can go up, you can go down. Your weight can go up, it can go down. So those are the sort of main things that can change. But I think particularly for men, one of the telltale signs is you get a shorter fuse. So you find yourself less patient with your wife, less patient with your kids. At work, you just feel like you're on edge because people are all getting under your skin.
Yeah.
If that's not normally you, that's a really important warning sign.
So,
Men
sorry, go ahead.
don't tend to be as emotional the other way, and this is not being particularly sexist, this is just the way it rolls. Women will more likely report a more tearfulness in emotions, but that can happen to men as well. And they really don't know what to do with that. They're like, I'm crying at a film. I don't normally cry at films. Okay, you probably need to see your doctor. If that's a
I
persistent.
would never even thought about that. And that's so true. It's where you're looking for a difference in behaviour or a different response, I guess. So if somebody finds themselves in that situation where they've noticed this change about themselves, what's the first thing? Obviously, you would recommend they go to their GP. What other things should they do?
Well, I think, as I say, if you're living with someone or other people, ask them, if you're not sure, say to them, look, I'm a bit unsure how I'm feeling at the moment. Can you give me, is there anything you think? Because people can be a bit slow in coming forward, but when you ask them, they'll go, well, actually, John, I've noticed you are a bit ratty. You've been a bit hard to live with. Normally, you're quite happy about life, but at the moment, you seem to be in a dark place. So that can be helpful. But I think what stops men going is stigma. They're worried about, they don't want, there's still, even though we've kind of tried to bring it out in the open, out here, we talk about Beyond Blue, got the stuff in the outback with these guys working on farm stations, away from, they're very isolated, but we're trying to get, rather than blowing their heads off with a shotgun, recognize all the things we've been talking about and go and get help, because it is treatable. So people need to go and talk, and whoever's going to listen to them. But as GPs, we see it as quite a common problem. Like I think you said 15% new diagnoses per year. It's out there and it can be treated. And like Jerry said, our spiritual walk is important. We need to think about it as Christians. We're body, mind, and spirit, and there are interactions. I think getting plugged into the Bible, reading the Psalms, that's important. But it's okay for Christians sometimes to need some medication or some psychological backup as well. So it's kind of both and.
So I mean, we would certainly recommend in terms of momentum, go and find your best mate and have a chat, or your wife, or whatever that your GP.
You reach out
to somewhere.
Reach out. It's so important.
To somewhere safe, I guess. So what other things can people do to help them recover from a mental illness? You know, you talked about medication, and yes, that's probably a last resort, right? But maybe it's not a last resort, maybe it's an early resort. But what other things can people do? I mean, Jerry, you mentioned the 3 things, you know, that you look out for. You know, the exercise, you know, finding someone to talk to, and your relationship with God, and those are all critically important.
Spirit, soul, and body stuff.
Yeah. Are there other things, John, that men can do that would help them navigate this area?
Well, we're about to go to Anzac Day, aren't we? And mateship is a key, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That's a good point.
You need your mateship. And, like, if your mates are really on the ball, they're like, hang on, John's not been out with us for a while. He seems to be making excuses. You go, oh, I better go and check in on, see how he's going.
Yes.
Rather than leave it for months. Oh, John's just been unreasonable. Des has gone into his own shell. I'll leave him to it. It's that awareness of your group dynamic.
Yes, and I
having
think
each other's backs.
Yeah, I think that's so important. You know, to be not only looking out for yourself, but looking out for those around you. And like you said, you know, Jerry hasn't turned up, you know, for the last couple of weeks. You know, he hasn't been surfing or whatever. Well, we should ask the question, right? What's wrong? You know, is there something we can do to help or whatever? So, as the last thing, John, what's the advice you would give men? You know, we've talked around lots of subjects, but what's the key for you?
We talking about mental and health now? Or?
Well, both. You can talk about both. Yeah.
You know, we need to spend a little bit more time having a step back and looking at our lives and saying, where are things going well? Where am I finding things challenging? Could I be doing some things better? What incremental changes can I make to improve my diet, my exercise? I mean, diet and exercise feed into mental health as well, you know.
Yeah, they do.
I'll be honest, if I wasn't running 3 or 4 times a week, I'd be struggling. I get my endorphins from that. It keeps me going. I process when I'm running. I'm not saying everyone needs to run. I'm just saying you need to find something that you gives you that outlet.
Kick a ball
so you can regroup.
Drones.
Yeah.
And
certainly there's plenty of places to run out in Broken Hill. Just make sure you don't drop down one of the holes.
Don't fall down a mine.
Yeah, that's right. So we've been talking to John Wenham, who's a great guy. John, thank you so much for your time today. And just before we finish, just want to remind guys about our website, momentumaustralia.org. Please give us feedback, questions, listen to the podcast, and if you want to support Momentum, please, you can do that. But also our care line, 1-800-000-MEN, 1-800-000-636, and don't forget our YouTube channel and TikTok as well, as we move into all these new areas. Yes, it is simple. Yeah. So thank you, John, for your time. It's been great having this conversation.
It has been very insightful.
And we look forward to another conversation shortly.
You've been listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. For more information or to hear this week's show again, go to momentumaustralia.org. You can also access a whole range of resources to help you on your journey and to get in touch with the team at momentumaustralia.org.